Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Desk Talk 5. We are so excited that you are still listening in to our discussions regarding recent changes as a result of the election. In our most recent episode, we discussed immigration. Immigration is so broad that we didn't even put a dent in that topic. We are going to pick up where we left off discussing immigration court cases. After that, we will be discussing tariffs and those recent changes, how that will impact us in the present time as well as the future. I would like to make a disclaimer. We will be discussing heavy topics that I wouldn't consider kid-friendly. So if you are a minor or are not comfortable respectfully discussing these topics, now would be your time to abort mission. I hope you stay, but I understand if you leave. This information is changing by the minute, so please bear with us. We're giving you what information we have compiled thus far. But again, this changes literally by the minute. So what I'm telling you right this second could change by the time this video is posted or by the time I get done recording this podcast. So I'm going to let Helena dive right into the court cases regarding immigration.
Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to pick up where we left off. We essentially did a summary of immigration. That's essentially what it was. So I'm going to go ahead. There have been several important court cases in the U.S. regarding illegal immigration and unlawful deportation. Some cases in the past I want to mention that set precedent was Arizona versus United States, 2012, where the issue was Arizona passed a law that allowed local police to check the immigration status of individuals and detain suspected undocumented immigrants. The ruling was struck down by the Supreme Court, most of the law ruling that immigration enforcement is primarily a federal responsibility. And the impact that court case had was that it cannot create immigration laws that interfere with federal policies. Then there was Plyer versus Doe, which was Texas attempted to deny public education to children of undocumented citizens or immigrants, and they ruled that that the states cannot deny education based on immigration status. And the impact is now that undocumented children have the right to free public education under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Then there's, and I apologize, some of these names I'm sure some of the names we're going to read we're going to butcher. Zadvidius versus Davis, which is 2001. The issue was that the government detained a deportable immigrant indefinitely because no country would accept him, which is quite recent problem we're having now. The Supreme Court ruled that the indefinite detention of immigrants is unconstitutional. Impact: the immigrants cannot be held indefinitely if deportation is not possible within a reasonable time frame, typically within 6 months. Two more court cases after this in the past. Reno versus American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee in 9. The issue was that the U.S. government targeted certain immigrants for deportation based on their political beliefs. The ruling was that the Supreme Court ruled that the federal government has a broad discretion in deportation cases. The impact of this case was that it limited judicial review over selected deportation claims. And then the Department of Homeland Security versus Regents of the University of California, 2020. So more recently, the Trump administration attempted to end the DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which protects certain undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. Ruling, the Supreme Court ruled that DACA was terminated improperly. The impact, or DACA, or DACA, protections remained in place through the program's long-term future remains uncertain. Alright, so these court cases that I mentioned below caused severe tension between federal, state, and individual rights in the immigration enforcement. They also highlight legal protections available to undocumented immigrants, particularly in cases of education, detention, and deportation. Some key stories that happened recently as of this year, okay? Was one case we brought up, I think me and Devin talked about it prior in one of the videos, was Andrew, a 31-year-old gay Venezuelan makeup artist, was seeking asylum in the United States and was reportedly misidentified as a gang member based on his tattoos and subsequently deported to El Salvador, where he was imprisoned. Andrew entered the U.S. lawfully and had no criminal background. His tattoos, described by his lawyer as typical and not indicative of gang affiliation, led to accusations of membership within this Venezuelan gang. The gang was Tren de Arguella, I believe that's how you say it. Upon deportation, Andrew was transferred to El Salvador's Terrorism Confinement Center, or CECOT, a facility known for human rights abuses and lack of due process. This incident highlights concerns regarding the treatment of asylum seekers and the reliance of superficial indicators such as tattoos to determine gang affiliation. That's just one. Any comments so far, guys, or questions? Okay, then some other recent reports are in raised concerns about oversight and well-being of unaccompanied migrant children within the United States. As of August 2024, a report by the Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General highlighted that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, did not consistently monitor the status of over 300,000 unaccompanied migrant children after their release from federal custody. This lapse has raised fears that some children may be vulnerable to exploitation or abuse. However, it's important to note that some experts argue that labeling these children as missing lacks context. They suggest that this issue often stems from administrative challenges such as missing paperwork or communication failures between agencies rather than the children being physically unaccounted for. In response to these concerns, the Trump administration has implemented changes to the Child Migrant Sponsorship Program. These reforms allow the Office for Refuge Resettlement, or ORR, to share the immigration status of potential sponsors with law enforcement and deny sponsorship based on immigration status. The aim is to protect children from trafficking and exploitation by ensuring that they are placed within the vetted Additionally, there have been reports of funding cuts to the legal aid programs for unaccompanied migrant children. This decision has raised concerns among immigrant legal and welfare groups who argue that it may leave many children without proper representation in immigration court, risking their risk of exploitation and reducing their chances of obtaining legal protection. These developments underscore the complexities and challenges of managing the welfare and unaccompanied migrant children within the U.S. immigration system. Last but not least, we also wanted to mention one of the key cases that's going on right now with a university graduate student detained by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) on March 27th, 2025. At an off-campus residence, the student's identity and nationality have not been disclosed, but for reasons and the reasons for the detention remain unclear. University officials stated they were notified and did not share any information with federal authorities before this incident. The university provides students with legal assistance and support services. This event had raised concerns among state and local leaders. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz emphasized that the university's role as an international hub for education and research, highlighting the need for clarity regarding detention. Senator Amy Klobuchar underscoring the significant contributions of international students to the community. The university's graduate labor union organized a protest in response, expressing the solidarity of international students and condemning the broader immigration enforcement actions under the Trump administration. This detention is part of a series of recent ICE actions involving individuals associated with U.S. academic institutions, prompting widespread concern about academic freedom and treatment of international students. I feel like that's super important just because we have so many international students. Like, imagine you're coming here and you're here legally, and then you literally get deported back to your country, and you're just there for education purposes. I can see that being a problem.
So it's not clear what he was even arrested for?
Yeah, no, it's not. They just went in, I think, one day. I think we talked about it. I don't know. Is this the one I think that got drunk, had a DUI? I'm not sure.
If he
Was
got
that
arrested
one?
for that, it's because he got 2 DUIs in like less than a year, and that's against the visa policy. So he lost his visa and had to go back to his country. But
Yeah, I'm
that's
not sure if that's the graduate student or the first guy I talked. No, the first guy I talked about was the makeup artist. So you might be right. This one was the one with the 2 DUIs.
yeah. So that's not really an unclear reason why he got arrested. He got arrested because he violated his guidelines for the visa. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, you get what you get. It's like losing your license after 2 DUIs for a year. You play, you pay. I mean, I hate to say that.
Yeah.
It's not like
I think that information was before they had come out with that ruling.
yeah. But I mean, I hate to say it, but the guy kind of earned that. If I mean, you have to be aware of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that in the prior video. If you're planning on going to another country, you have to follow that country's rules. That way you don't get because that like I think we talked about with Brittany Griner, the basketball player who got detained in Russia for having I think she had illegal drugs on her, and I think that was why she got detained. And she went to jail for a hard time for that.
A long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
A long time. And then the way we had to get her back, which I'm not trying to place value in somebody's life, but I feel like it was just one of those bad trades where Russia asked for an arms dealer back. I think we talked about this prior. Instead, and for
Yeah.
her, for a basketball player, I was like, why are we trading an arms dealer for a basketball player?
Who brought drugs with her? Like you kind of earned that. You kind of landed yourself there. Hate to tell
That's
you
what
that.
I'm saying, but I'm thinking that the trade was kind of unfair because we just released an arms dealer back to Russia.
A Russian
traded-
spy.
I said the same thing. I was like, not to put a value on somebody's life, but I felt like that was like a really
That
odd
was a
and like
bad move.
bad trade.
Man, God bless. Fun stuff, man. Glad I don't. I always say that. Glad it doesn't fall on my shoulders.
That is it for our court cases as of right now. I know there's a bunch of other ones that we probably failed to mention, but those are just some of the ones that came up in our research.
Y'all remember we've tried to cover this as much as we could, but we truly didn't even scratch the surface. I mean,
There's so much. It would
There is
take us,
a lot.
I think, years to actually really deep dive into that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump in with our icebreaker questions. We're going to try to keep this short and sweet but fun.
Yeah.
5 questions that I'm going to ask Helena and Melanie. And I'm going to ask the question and then I'm going to call on you guys to answer and then we'll go to the next one. Okay. As Helena has fireworks going off in the background, that's how excited she is. Okay. If you could swap lives with any certain cartoon character for one day, who would it be and why? Helena.
There's so many possibilities. Definitely gonna be a character from One Piece. Just my favorite cartoon show. My favorite anime.
Just shoot.
I'm gonna say Nami. Kind of regular Nami.
Who's that?
I'll show you guys a total other set.
I think I know who that is, like by
Why would you want to be that person?
Because she's amazing.
Okay. Melanie, who's yours?
Here's a picture of her.
Oh, she's so cute.
she is.
Look,
She's so cute.
and she's a thief. She steals money from
That's
people.
great.
I'm
Hers
rich.
sounds cool. Mine's gonna sound dumb.
Let me hear it.
Well, it could be any cartoon really, but you know, like those cartoons we used to watch as kids where you'd like see like the crazy violence and like the bam and the crazy things that would happen. I just think that'd be cool. Whether it's like Tom and Jerry or any of like those old cartoons.
Tom and Jerry
like,
is
just live that out. It's great.
Jerry's amazing. That's nostalgia. That's some slap right there.
Yes, it is.
I used to love
Yeah.
those.
All right, next question. Would you rather have a pet dragon or pet unicorn, and what would you name it? Melanie.
I don't know what I'd name it, but probably a dragon.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, what if
Be
you
cool
had
to
create a
fly.
name? Right off the tip of your tongue, you have to create a name.
No. This is
Okay.
pressure.
Helena, what you got? Pet dragon or pet unicorn? What would you name it?
A pet dragon, just because it could fly. Unicorns, I know they use magic, but they can't fly. Dragons can fly and use magic, so I feel like that's a plus.
Okay.
And its name would be Atraxis. I know it's gonna be a weird, but I like it. Looks like spelled like this.
You said Atraxis?
Atraxis. So like Atraxis.
I like that. I like that. Okay, next question. If you could invent a new holiday, what would it be called and how would people celebrate it? Helena, go first.
How about? I guess I would probably call it a free day where everyone takes the day off.
That is the best holiday.
Like, and I'm not talking like Christmas or like Labor Day where like certain people, I mean like everyone stops working for that. There is like literally no one does anything.
I think right.
I know it causes problems for our economy for a day, but
We can just resume, whatever.
who
I was
resumes
just
on it?
about to say something similar.
Just for a day. It's not like it's gonna affect us too deeply.
If you're thinking the same, then you just say it, Melanie. Go ahead.
Honestly, like just a couple days like that. That'd be nice.
A couple days. So we need 3 new holidays.
We
Free.
need a whole vacation.
It's fine.
It's good. What's the weirdest food combination you secretly love? Melanie, go first.
I mean, I don't like it so much anymore, but when I was younger, I feel like a lot of kids do this, but I used to put like ketchup and rice.
What?
Yeah. It's what I used to do when I was younger. I don't do it anymore.
So I'll do you one better. I think mine was mayo and rice. I liked mayo and rice together. Mayo, mustard, and rice.
She taught me on that one.
I literally okay. So to give you guys context, before I feel visibly attacked in this comment section, if there's any attackers, I actually when I first moved here, my parents didn't have a lot of money, so I had to eat cafeteria food. I was on what's it called, the free and reduced lunch, and I didn't like the lunch they served, so I would literally give my other parts of my lunch away and only have rice. And because the rice, they can't season it, so there was like no salt or pepper or butter or anything to like give it any oomph. So I literally would just put mayo or mustard in there, depending on what packets they had available. Never ketchup though. I don't know.
Hey, no judgment. Whatever you love, okay?
What about you, Devin? I need to hear what yours is.
Yeah, what's yours?
I like cottage cheese with a ton of pepper. And my favorite thing to do is to get those, I want to say they're Lay's sour cream and onion chips. I haven't done this in years. And dip them in the cottage cheese and eat them like that.
Okay,
Good.
so I kind of do the same thing, except with like the Ruffles chips, like the red bagged Ruffle, the like Lay's chips, and I would dip them in sour cream and just eat them straight up. It's literally, I don't feel like that. I feel like it. I mean, it's potato and sour cream. I don't feel like it gets that crazy. It's just fried.
It is so good, but people always are like, how do you eat cottage cheese? Because there's so much
I want to hear it. There are people that eat bugs across the world. I know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I know. Protein.
Nowhere near as bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extra protein. Okay, last question. If you had a superpower that only worked at school, what would it be and how would you use it? Melanie, you're up.
Teleporting so I could get out of there.
You go, girl.
That is so real.
Okay, so how would you use it? You would just fly away?
Sure.
Helena,
Like
you're up.
teleporting, whatever gets me out of there.
You're up, Helena.
Mine would probably be a little bit more optimal. Probably perfect memory. Anything that I read, I will remember.
That is
Anything
great.
I've seen, I'll remember. I'll be like a modern day woman, Captain America. I can just look at it once and I know it.
Literally. That's good stuff. I would want to read the teacher's mind. Like you asked me a question, I'm reading your mind because you got the answer there.
I don't want to read anyone's mind. I know how. I know.
I hear everybody
No.
else's thoughts though.
It's scary world out there. Okay. Melanie, I'm going to let you take off with starting off explaining what is a tariff for our audience.
All right. So, tariffs are a form of taxes placed by the federal government on imported goods and services. Until recently, the US was among the few countries that enforced very low tariffs or no tariffs at all for countries around the world. Basically, we weren't enforcing tariffs until recently while paying tariffs to other countries. We are feeding the American money to all these other countries. Nearly all of our products are made overseas now, and we aren't getting much of that money in return. I'm going to dive into a little bit of the history of tariffs. So tariffs used to be a major source of government revenue. Between 1798 and 1913, they accounted for anywhere from 50 to 90% of federal income. But times have changed. Over the past 70 years, tariffs have rarely contributed more than 2% of federal revenue. Last year, for example, U.S. Customs and Border Protection collected $77 billion in tariffs, just 1.57% of total government income. Wow, that's small. Since the 1930s, the U.S. has moved away from protectionism in favor of trade liberalization, which is promoting free trade. Agreements like General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade and its successor, the World Trade Organization, have dramatically lowered global tariffs. Today, roughly 70% of all products enter the U.S. duty-free. The government's source of revenue has come from the American working class. With an economy such as the state we're currently living in, something has to change. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Devin.
All right, I am going to read a fact sheet from the whitehouse.gov, and this is significantly long, so I'm going to go through what I think will be important, but I want to remind you guys again that this stuff is changing by the minute. So by the time I get done reading this could have changed, and it seems as if there are, not bartering, but there are deals working in the mix that we may know about, we may not know about, but I almost feel in terms that some of these tariffs that are being proposed are just to put pressure on people to lower tariffs on the U.S. But I'm going to go through all this with you. There may be things that I leave out, but all of this, again, is on whitehouse.gov, the fact sheet for 2025. And again, it could be updated by the time I get done. To American workers. Large and persistent annual U.S. good trade deficits have led to the hollowing out of our manufacturing base, resulted in a lack of incentive to increase advanced domestic manufacturing capacity, undermined critical supply chains, and rendered our defense industrial base dependent on foreign adversities. So basically, he is saying that we have incentivized doing work overseas or buying our products overseas, and he wants to change that. President Trump is invoking his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to address the national emergency posed by the large and persistent trade deficit that is driven by the absence of reciprocity in our trade relationships and other harmful policies like currency manipulation and exorbitant value-added taxes perpetuated by other countries. So again, just like Melanie talked about, we are paying tariffs to everywhere else. We're not charging them to many countries. If we're charging anything at all, it's very low. Using his IEEPA authority, President Trump will impose a 10% tariff on all countries. This will take effect April 5th at 12:01 a.m., so that's already in effect. President Trump will impose an individualized reciprocal higher tariff on the countries with which the United States has the largest trade deficits. All other countries will continue to be subject to the original 10%. This will take effect April 9th, 2025 at 12:01 a.m. These tariffs will remain in effect until such a time as President Trump determines that the threat posed by the trade deficit and underlying non-reciprocal treatment is satisfied, resolved, or mitigated. which as of today, hang on one second. The Israel Prime Minister Benjamin
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu visited the White House today, and as of today, he's working very quickly to resolve those tariffs. We'll get to that in a minute, but my whole point is he has, whether this puts us in a difficult position or not, he's using this as a negotiation tool, I would say, although it may hurt more than it helps for a little while. These, again, I just read that these will remain in effect until basically people cave for what he's wanting. Today, IEPA's order, that's how I feel. Today, IEPA's order also contains modification authority, allowing President Trump to increase the tariff if trading partners retaliate or decrease the tariffs and trading partners take significant steps to remedy non-reciprocal trade agreements and align with the United States on economic and national security matters. Some goods will not be subject to reciprocal tariff. These include articles subject to 50 USC 1702B, steel, aluminum articles, and auto parts already subject to Section 232 tariffs, copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and lumber articles. All articles that may become subject to future 232 tariffs are bullion and energy, other certain minerals that are not available in the United States. For Canada and Mexico, existing fentanyl migration IEEPA orders remain in effect and are unaffected by this order. This means the USMCA compliant goods will continue to see a 0% tariff. Non-USMCA compliant goods will see a 25% tariff, and non-USMCA compliant energy and potash will see a 10% tariff. In the event the existing fentanyl migration IEEPA orders are terminated, USMCA compliant goods will continue to receive preferential treatment, while non-USMCA compliant goods will be subject on a 12% reciprocal tariff. Wow. Okay, taking back our economic sovereignty. President Trump refuses to let the United States be taken advantage of and believes that tariffs are necessary to ensure fair trade, protect American workers, and reduce the trade deficit. This is an emergency. He is the first president in modern history to stand strong for hardworking Americans by asking other countries to follow the golden rule on trade. Treat us like we treat you, which I think is the incentive to do free trade all around the world. That's going to take some work.
You should treat a person, treat others how you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
Copernicus' economic policies and practices of our trading partners undermine our ability to produce essential goods for the public and the military, threatening national security. U.S. companies, according to internal estimates, pay over $200 billion per year in value-added taxes to foreign governments, a double whammy on U.S. companies who pay the tax at the European border, while European companies don't pay the tax to the United States on the income from their exports to the U.S. Not gonna lie, that sounds like a scam. The annual cost to the U.S. economy of counterfeit goods, pirated software, and theft of trade secrets is between $225 billion and $600 billion. Counterfeit products not only pose a significant risk to the U.S. competitiveness, but also threaten the security, health, and safety of Americans with the global trade in counterfeit pharmaceuticals estimated at $4.4 billion and linked to the distribution of deadly fentanyl-laced drugs.
Real quick question. What are counterfeit dollars? I feel like I missed that.
Counterfeit products?
Oh, is that what that is? What you say?
Yeah. Let's do some research. Counterfeit products, an item that uses someone else's trademark without their permission.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, kind of like copyright almost?
It sounds like it.
Except it has to do with like a physical object rather than like ideas.
So one example that just pulled up on the internet for counterfeit product. A counterfeit product are low quality imitations of original items. Shoes that should last over a year look worn out in months. Headphones with awful quality or worse product. Yeah, fun stuff. That too.
Mo, Sheen,
Yeah.
Wish.
Yeah. Okay.
Which has all been like, some people have had their designs stolen, at least from stuff, and that comes from factories who like have just stolen their designs and just made smaller and cheaper versions.
And they somehow like
and sell
dance
it on there.
around. They dance around it.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of designs that even people in our small business fantasy pin community, like they've actually taken designs from different people, like artists and stuff, and made it cheaper.
Okay. Regarding the trade deficit, this imbalance has fueled a large and persistent trade deficit in both industrial and agricultural goods, led to offshoring of our manufacture base, empowered non-market economies like China, and hurt America's middle class and small towns. President Biden squandered the agricultural trade surplus inherited from President Trump's first turn, turning it into a projected all-time high deficit of $49 billion. The current global trading order allows those using unfair trade practices to get ahead, while those playing by the rules get left behind. So he's talking about the
So Democrats and Republicans. So it sounds like, because
I think what he means in terms of what this means in terms of that is the current global trading order allows those using unfair trade practices to get ahead while those playing by the rules get left behind.
so the wealthy versus the poor.
Pretty much. So what I found there is, like, for example, other countries, we're putting all of our money in those other countries. We're buying everything from China and India and these other places, but they're not giving us back any tariffs, right? So we're poor.
So what I'm hearing is, just sorry, real quick, is that it's not really the people in that country, it's people that control that country that are doing that.
Like it's like I was texting you guys earlier. We don't find it's hard to find anything made in America. I intentionally get on Amazon and look for products made in America, and the list is very slim because it's so much cheaper to do things over there.
It is so tiny. I feel like a lot of it is, if it says it's made in America, more than likely the parts that make it in America are made somewhere else. So
Right.
it's not really made in America. It's just it's built in America. How about that?
In 2024, our trade deficit in goods exceeded $1.2 trillion, an unsustainable crisis ignored by prior leadership. Made in America is not just a tagline, it's an economic and national security priority of this administration. The president's reciprocal trade agenda means better paying American jobs, making beautiful American-made cars, appliances, and other goods. These tariffs seek to address the injustice of global trade, reshore manufacturing, and drive economic growth for the American people. Kind of like what you just said, Helena. It says made in America. It's generally built in America, manufactured there, or products are built from somewhere else.
Yo.
Reciprocal trade is America First trade because it increases our competitive edge, protects our sovereignty, and strengthens our national and economic security. These tariffs adjust for the unfairness of ongoing international trade practices, balance our chronic good trade deficit, provide an incentive for reshoring production in the United States, and provide our foreign trading partners with an opportunity to rebalance their trade relationships with the United States. President Trump recognizes that increasing domestic manufacturing is critical to the U.S. national security. In 2023, U.S. manufacturing output as a share of global manufacturing output was 17.4%. Down from 28.4% in 2001. The decline in manufacturing output has reduced U.S. manufacturing capacity. The need to maintain a resilient domestic manufacturing capacity is particularly acute in advanced sectors like auto, shipbuilding, pharmaceuticals, transport equipment, technology products, machine tools, thick and fabricated metals, where loss of capacity could permanently weaken U.S. competitiveness. So right now, some of you may relate to this if you have a CDL license. What is it called? Hot shot, which is where you basically haul vehicles and all sorts of different products to one place in the United States to another. Hot shot is very popular right now for the sake of paying for the price of something being imported from another country into the United States. So a lot of people are, and let's say that Helena owns a dealership out in Colorado and I own a dealership down in Florida. I would rather buy a car off of her lot for a cheaper price than buy a brand new one that's imported from overseas. So hot shotting right now is hot on the press. Like guys that have a CDL, they are busy taking things from Texas to here and here to there and all these different things. So that is a way for them to try and escape around paying the tariffs, as it's kind of like a retaliatory tariff right now from BMW. I can't remember exactly where BMW is made, but BMW.
In Germany, I believe.
Yeah, so that's made overseas. You're going to pay a tariff to get that over here versus if Helena's got 5 on her lot, they're not being sold. I'm just going to hit up Helena and be like, yo, I can pay you, keep this money here. I can pay a guy to come get it for less than what I could pay to have it over there. So those are just examples of that. Stockpiles of military goods are too low to be compatible with U.S. national defense interests. If the U.S. wishes to maintain an effective security umbrella to defend its citizens and homeland, as well as allies and partners, it needs to have a large upstream manufacturing and good producing ecosystem. This includes developing new manufacturing technologies in critical sectors like biomanufacturing, batteries, and microelectronics to support defense needs. Increased reliance on foreign producers for goods has left the U.S. supply chain vulnerable to geopolitical disruption and supply shocks, which is what we're going to be looking at as all of this hits us. Like right now, it's all kind of like, oh my gosh, everybody's in shock. When it starts hitting us, the fact that we purchase so much and rely so much on foreign goods, that's going to hurt us because we don't have the goods here to be able to make what we purchase from over there. Like when I get on Amazon, I'm just buying whatever I want.
You're gonna see I was gonna say, so you're gonna see effects like that. See effects like that. It's not gonna be like something that happens right away that you're gonna walk in. It'll be something gradual, like you walking one day into a supermarket or a grocery store and being like, "Gee, why is this tumbler like $15 before when it was like 7?" Or like wine is gonna be like even more expensive. You're talking like where it was $7, $8 before, it's gonna be like 20 some 30 something dollars depending on what kind of bottle you're getting. It's gonna be stuff like that because it's not just gonna be, it's gonna be domestic too because we get our food and some food is transported from overseas.
Asparagus.
On some level,
Avocados.
I do think that some of this stuff will force other countries to also lower their tariffs because we rely on trade from other countries and we more than any country, I think we rely on that stuff. I think they're going to be forced to lower it and to make us lower it just so that we could, because we rely on it and we're big buyers in that regard. So I do think it's a strategy, I think, more than anything.
It's already working, like what you just said, forcing them to come down. Another thing I just thought of is just like you guys were, she was just talking about the wine. So I think that we might see some of our goods and our supplies changing. Like we might only be able to get what we have here for a little while if we're not willing to pay that money.
I think the biggest issue is the tax it's going to put on the middle class, middle and lower class. I don't think this tariff really affects those of the wealthy class as much as it's going to affect those who don't make as much money or those who are living paycheck to paycheck already. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like, and that's where I feel like it's kind of almost unnecessary. You're putting people through unnecessary pain and struggle and strife already when they don't have that much. And then you're talking about, on top of the tariffs, all the other problems that are going to hit them as well, like no social security and a bunch of other stuff that they're planning on enacting and stuff like that. They already have no money. So you're talking about no social security check, which pays for people's meals or weeks at a time. I know somebody right now who lives off social security or welfare checks, and they essentially took all that money back from me. Like, well, sorry, we overcharged you. And that extra $50 that they took back from him, right, that they deducted from him, was his grocery money. He literally gets his weekly grocery money from $50 a week. So you're talking about people that are already living like that, having to buy even more expensive stuff. Where are they getting the money to buy food?
This is a point that I thought was good earlier that I ran across. If we're going to experience the price of everything going up as we're trying to figure out how to make these goods in the US, I'm not sure that it'll go to that extent. I don't know. These countries could cave and they could eliminate all tariffs and we could be a free trade world. I don't know. But if the price of everything's going to go up, we need immediate relief, which if we want to start enforcing tariffs to completely eliminate federal income tax, that sounds like a great thing, right? Completely eliminate the fact that we're taking it from any American citizen. That's great, but you have to give us relief while we get there. So if you're going to start charging for the tariffs, give us immediate tax relief while we have that additional money that we can put towards paying for things. Like you said, the money's got to come from somewhere. So if you're going to do this, you need to do this immediately. If you're going to enforce it, we need
Or
tax relief.
or do something along the lines of, instead of like taxing people at like a rate, right, at a certain rate, and it would be super and I don't think this would be functional, but it would be super complicated to do, but tax people, like if you're going to increase certain items, right, take into account how much money this person makes. You know what I'm saying? If they make well above the tax bracket and should be able to afford this food, then they should be able to pay more money than other people, versus somebody who lives off welfare checks and all they have is maybe $50 to get by for groceries, and they should be either exempt from that or have cheaper prices to buy groceries at. I think it would be really hard to do that, but I feel like something along the lines, there should be a plan in place that helps with that, because there are some people that can't do that.
Well, that's the thing, is if they are going to enforce trades and they're going to eliminate federal income tax and taxes on food and all that, they won't need tax at all. They won't need tax at all.
Yeah, give us a tax break.
Right. Just eliminate it all at one time.
That'd be nice.
I'm not gonna lie
I
to
would
you.
like I'd like a $4. I would like a 4 grand tax break, please, as a small business owner. I know people that are listening to that, if they were like big business owners, they'd probably be like, "That is like nothing." I'm like, "I know, but I'm self-employed and I only make like 27,000 a year. 27,000 a year.
Right, you have to allow it now.
I don't make it. I barely make squat compared to how some people make."
I mean, this is what I'm thinking. Like, I'm thinking out of one paycheck, that's a couple $100 if you got rid of federal income tax.
Oh my God, yes. But see, the problem with getting rid of that tax is that goes to pay towards public things that we use every day. You're talking about it goes to pay towards social, what's it called? It's social something.
Social Security.
Social Security, roads, libraries, welfare programs, veterans. It goes towards a bunch of stuff. Like the money, it trickles in from everywhere. It goes towards many different things. It goes towards paying some people's salaries within the government programs. Like it's not like, and that's where I think we run into the problem is America is already so much in debt that you're talking about. It's like almost at this point you're just paying off interest
But that's
when
the
you do
thing.
something like that.
If they have these tariffs, that's what will pay for these salaries and these government programs and roads and all that.
And my thing is, well, then that begs the question: why cut so many people? I understand that there does need to be like our system does need a complete overhaul, and that there are some positions that I feel like are irrelevant. But I also feel like if that is you're going to do it, it needs to be a gradual process, not a like chainsaw and hack it off like right away, moment, and like because they're firing people regardless of whether they were reviewed well or not. You know what I'm saying? There were people that came up on the news the other day talking about how they were fired indiscriminately against, even though they had a good review, even though they were told they were doing a good job at their job and were actually showing up to work and making a considerable effort. It's like they just haphazardly just hacked it off, like, oh, we'll fire you all. And then there was no option to stay. It was either we fire you and you don't get a money, or you quit and we give you this pension.
Yeah. I think their current concern is there's so many jobs that are unnecessary in the government that it doesn't matter how you perform. If they think the job is unnecessary, they're getting rid of it. That's what I
Well, then there, and this is where I come into that problem. Instead of rushing, just hack those people off. And here's what's going to happen when you do stuff like that. Now you're putting a bunch of these career people out of a job. So the job market, the unemployment rate is going to be saturated. It's going to be crazy. You're going to have all these people without a job, and you're talking about they can't afford these houses that they now have that they've been paying with, and a bunch of other stuff. And so these tariffs, I feel like you're talking about, are they going to tackle the main concerns of what's going to happen?
don't know. I look at it from both sides. Like, I remember whenever the previous administration hired 80,000 people to monitor our transactions for the IRS. 80,000 people. So I'm like, there's probably a good bit of people in there, at least 80,000, that are not. We shouldn't be, first of all, monitored with transactions over $600. I'm pretty sure everybody that gets paid at least every 2 weeks makes at least $600. It's none of the government's business what I make. So I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there are some unnecessary positions, and it seemed like the government is reaching out to like a little further than they need to with the spying and all of that. I'm not a big fan of all that. My business is my business. You're to govern the public safety and things of that nature. You don't need to be in my business. The government was overreaching. And I think that's where it kind of ruined it for all of those people is they were overreaching and now they're just hacking out. If this doesn't make sense, we're getting rid of it. If this doesn't make sense, we're getting rid of it. Which, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I hate it that so many people.
It's so recent.
There's pros and cons to it. I mean, that they're doing what has to be done. It sucks, but
I think it just depends on the outcome. I think that's where we're at right now with the tariffs. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like we just have to wait and see.
Part of
Because this is all predictions at this point. It's like what if?
lying. Okay, the next topic is going to go into trade imbalances. I'll get there in a second, but hopefully this provides a little bit of insight for us on what we can expect because it's like y'all said, right now we're just kind of we're winging it.
We're in limbo.
Right through it. Okay, from 1997 to 2024, the U.S. lost around 5 million manufacturing jobs and experienced one of the largest drops in manufacturing employment in history. Addressing trade imbalances, President Trump is working to level the playing field for American businesses and workers by confronting the unfair tariff disparities and non-tariff barriers imposed by other countries. For generations, countries have taken advantage of the United States, tariffing us at higher rates. For example, the U.S. imposes a 2.5% tariff on passenger vehicle imports with internal combustion engines, while the European Union is at 10% and India 70% impose much higher duties on the same product. So do I understand that correctly? The United States imposes 2% tariff on passenger vehicle imports, while the European Union charges 10% and India charges 70%?
First of all, what? Hold on.
There are some
Hold on.
crazy ones, I'll be honest with you, because
What car is that expensive?
because I read a bunch of stuff that we didn't have any tariffs, and they'd have like 60-70% tariffs on stuff coming
Yeah,
here.
we're one of the few countries that didn't charge tariffs. That's kind of stupid. And then we put
So
the government salary on the American people whenever really we should be bartering that.
there's a few cars from India into America. I want to know what cars that are coming from India. I don't know any Indian car brands. To import a car from India to the US, you need to insure. I don't know.
What cars are made in India?
There are no restrictions in unauthorized buying a car.
Tata, Mahindra. Okay, Mahindra tractors. I know that very well. Suzuki.
Suzuki's Japanese though.
Marutu Suzuki, Japanese Indian joint venture, but majority
Oh, okay, makes sense.
foreign brands manufacturing in India. Hyundai. Hyundai has certain models that are
I think
produced.
Kia is also another one.
Kia, some Kia models. Toyota has certain models. Honda, Volkswagen, Skoda, Renault, and MG.
I know this is kind of like not important, but I like this car's name. It's Tata Nexon.
Pretty funny.
I do love that. It's so
That's a good
great.
one. For networking switches and routers, the United States imposes a 0% tariff, but India proposes a 10 to 20% higher rate. Brazil, 18%, and Indonesia, 30%, impose a higher tariff on ethanol than does the United States at 2.5%. Basically, we are screwing ourselves. For rice in the husk, the U.S. imposes a tariff of 2.7%, while India proposes 80%, Malaysia 40%, and Turkey 31%.
Now, is it for these tariffs? Is it taking into account the inflation from different countries, which is why the tariffs are so high? I'm not.
I don't know, but that is crazy.
Also, I'm sorry. I just I just it's from Tata Motors, and there's a car called Tata Punch.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I would love to be. This is my Tata Punch right here, guys.
Okay, welcome. Take a ride.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
You have to have at least a cooler full of punch in your car.
Yes. Yes.
Apples enter the United States duty-free, but not so in Turkey. They propose a 60.3% tariff and India at 50%.
Oh my God. That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. The United States has one of the lowest simple average most favored nation tariff rates in the world at 3.3%, while many of our key trading partners like Brazil average 11.2%, China 7%, European Union 5%, India 17%, and Vietnam 9.4% have simple average MFN tariff rates that are significantly higher. Similarly,
So, what is our tariff rate now then?
this is our simple average most favored nation tariff rate, so 3.3%.
But is that accurately reflecting after the tariffs were enacted this week, though?
This is what's clicked on as of today. Let me see. April 2nd. My bad. April 2nd.
So even with all the tariff,
We are nowhere near. That's what I mean. This truly is a negotiation tool. It is a leverage is what I think he's using this for.
I think it's gonna force everybody to lower theirs.
Yeah, because
and
that's a
make it
lot
more
of damn
fair.
money.
I think it's
Yeah.
really a war of patience though right now because that's under the guise that countries do that. We don't know what
Yep.
countries are going to do.
Definitely gonna take a little while, and I think everybody's freaking out right now. But I think L's gonna get sorted. It's just gonna take some time. It's gonna get worse before it gets better.
It is, I think. I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. Similarly, non-tariff barriers meant to limit the quantity of import/export and protect domestic industries also deprive U.S. manufacturers of reciprocal access to markets around the world. For example, China's non-market policies and practices have given China global dominance in key manufacturing industries, decimating U.S. industry. Between 2001 and 2018, these practices contributed to the loss of 3.7 million U.S. jobs due to the growth of the U.S.-China trade deficit, displacing workers and undermining American competitiveness while threatening U.S. economic and national security by increasing our reliance on foreign-controlled supply chains for critical industries as well as everyday goods. I gotta be honest, I think that a lot of the media and all these other things are putting us in a lot of fear, which there should be some sort of fear because we don't know where anything's going. But reading that alone there clarifies a lot of information for me in terms of why inflation is so high. We've put everything overseas. Nothing's made here. We have to pay for all of these things to get here, which we have to pay whatever they cost because we've done away with it here. 3.7 million jobs. That's a lot. It imposes their own uniquely burdensome and or duplicate testing and certification requirements in sectors such as chemical, telecom products, and medical devices that make it difficult or costly for American companies to sell their products in India. If these barriers were removed, it is estimated that U.S. exports would increase by at least $5.3 billion annually. So, what they're saying is India imposes a uniquely burdensome or duplicative testing of chemicals, telecom products, and medical devices that make it costly for us. So, they're obviously tested before they're sold in that country. We have to pay a duplicate test to get them here. If these barriers were removed, it would estimate that U.S. exports would increase by $5.3 billion annually. So, to put that in perspective in terms of like taxes and how do we get out of this debt that we're in, how do we get out of such a terrible economy, we eliminate having to pay for that over there in terms of negotiating these tariffs, and we're bringing in just by that one segment $5.3 billion annually put back into our economy. That's insane. Like, I'm kind of glad we're covering this because it's helping me to educate myself and understand the importance of purchasing here in America. Countries including China, Germany, Japan, and South Korea have pursued policies that suppress the domestic consumption power of their own citizens to artificially boost the competitiveness of their products, of their export products. Such policies include regressive tax systems, low or unenforced penalties for environmental degradation, and policies intended to suppress worker wages relative to productivity.
I guess my question to that is like, so let's say we do bring back more factory jobs to America, right? With this tariff policy. So who's going to fill those roles? I know, there's going to be some Americans that fill that role, but are they going to increase the pace so that Americans will? Because I hate to say it, Americans are kind of spoiled. They're not going to want to do all this heavy work in a factory unless they absolutely have to. And I mean, they're going to have to, but I promise you, people will do what they want to do. As has been proven on TV many times through the news, that people will do what they want to do regardless. So if they don't want to work those jobs, they won't. So what will happen is those jobs are going to fall to the low class. And essentially we might see, and this is just predicting, and this is just like a what if scenario, we might see a separation of classes even further apart than what we did before.
We may. Hey, they got to pay them at least minimum wage.
Possible.
Well, right now, even minimum wage right now is not livable. Livable minimum wage would be like getting like $40-something an hour.
Yeah, minimum wage right now is nothing, which I feel like minimum wage being bumped up, even in Florida, up to $15, that created some sort of inflation in itself.
And then there begs the problem, if we increase minimum wage to like $47, you're going to put out a bunch of small businesses out of business because they can't afford something like that, just because of how expensive it is to live nowadays.
Fun. Right when I started making like decent money, the economy was like, just kidding.
Psych! You
And-
saw it though!
I'm like, all right, I'm grateful, dude. I'm grateful I have a job. I'm just grateful I have a job.
Yeah. That's all you
Okay.
can.
Certain countries like Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, and Vietnam restrict or prohibit the importation of remanufactured goods, restricting market access for U.S. exporters while also stifling exports to promote sustainability by discouraging trade in like new and resource-efficient products. If these barriers were removed, it is estimated that the U.S. exports would increase by at least $18 billion annually. What? That is insanity. Okay. The United Kingdom maintains non-science-based standards that severely restrict U.S. exports of safe, high-quality beef and poultry products. Science-based standards. Indonesia maintains local content requirements across a broad range of sectors, complex importing license. Argentina has banned imports of U.S. live cattle since 2002 due to unsubstantiated concerns regarding bovine spongiform encephalopathy. United States has a $23 million trade deficit with Argentina in beef and beef products. Why are we not eating beef right here in the U.S.? I have no idea. Whatever. For decades, South Africa has imposed animal health restrictions that are not scientifically justified on U.S. pork products, permitting a very limited list of U.S. pork exports to enter South Africa. South Africa also heavily restricts U.S. poultry exports through high tariffs, anti-dumping duties, and unjustified animal health restrictions. These barriers have contributed to a 78% decline in U.S. poultry export to South Africa, from $89 million in 2019 to $19 million in 2024. U.S. automakers face a variety of non-tariff barriers that impede across to the Japanese and Korean automotive markets, including non-acceptance of certain U.S. standards, duplicative testing and certification requirements, and transparency issues. Due to these non-reciprocal practices, the U.S. automotive industry loses out on an additional $13.5 billion in annual exports to Japan and across to a larger import market share in Korea, all while the U.S. trade deficit with Korea more than tripled from 2019 to 2024. So basically, the U.S. automakers face struggles importing those vehicles into Japanese and Korean automotive markets because they do not accept certain U.S. standards, duplicative testing, and certification requirements, and there are transparency issues. So that hurts our economy because we cannot export there because they don't accept certain policies. Monetary tariffs and non-monetary tariffs are two distinct types of trade barriers that governments use to regulate imports and exports. President Trump is countering both through reciprocal tariffs to protect American workers and industries from these unfair practices. All right. The golden rule for our golden age. Today's actions simply ask other countries to treat us like we treat them. It is the golden rule for our golden age. After reading those tariffs, not gonna lie, they need to pay what we're paying, or they need to eliminate, and we need to have a free trade. Access to the American market is a privilege, not a right. The United States will no longer put itself last on matters of international trade in exchange for empty promises. Reciprocal tariffs are a big part of why Americans voted for President Trump. It was a cornerstone of his campaign from the start. Everyone knew he'd push for them once he got back in office. It's exactly what he promised, and it's a key reason why he won the election. These tariffs are central to President Trump's plan to reverse the economic damage left by President Biden and put America on the path to a new golden age. This builds his broader economic agenda for energy competitiveness, tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security benefits, and deregulation to boost American prosperity. Studies have repeatedly shown that tariffs can be an effective tool for reducing or eliminating threats that impair U.S. national security and achieving economic and strategic objectives. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the tariffs implemented by President Trump during his first term clearly showed no correlation with inflation and only had a temporary effect on overall price levels. An analysis from the Atlantic Council found that tariffs would create new incentives for U.S. customers to buy U.S.-made products. A 2024 economic analysis found that a global tariff of 10% would grow the economy by $728 billion, create 2.8 million jobs, and increase real household incomes by 5. One of the things that President Trump really campaigned about was lowering the cost of energy. We are purchasing oil from overseas, which really doesn't make much sense when we can drill right here. We have gotten rid of so many different sources of drilling for oil. It's ridiculous. So if we drill here and not have to pay for the tariffs to import from overseas, that alone would significantly lower the cost of energy. So those are just one of his many campaigns about that kind of stuff. Some folks are very surprised by some of this. However, it seems as we just didn't understand the message in its entirety when he was talking about stuff like that. As of April 7th, 2025, the European Union offers 0 for 0 tariffs, basically offering free trade exchanges between our countries. So like we were talking about earlier, some of the stuff is already working in terms of getting them to lower tariffs or completely get rid of tariffs. Understanding of tariffs. Basically, the enforcement of tariffs will make other countries lower their tariff percentages on the United States, or it will make the United States move on without the goods from those other countries, forcing Americans to keep the production, jobs, and money spent right here in the United States. I wanted to give you guys a couple of captions that I read earlier, which kind of explained on an everyday level versus a long-winded way of explaining things that provided explanation on tariffs. Here's the first one. This is by Grant Godwin and Nick Sorter. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Here's the breakdown. Trump is trying to crash the stock market at least 20%, causing a flight into treasuries. This will cause the feds to slash interest rates so he can refinance the debt to near 0% and cause a deflationary spiral, which will lower the cost of everything. He also intends to use tariffs as an incentive for companies to build in the U.S. to avoid having to pay them. The tariffs and the resulting global trade war will also force American farmers to sell more of their goods to the U.S. due to retaliatory trade measures by other countries. So instead of the U.S. selling products to other countries and paying those tariffs, they're going to just sell them right here. They may initially hurt, but in the long run, it will boost our economy, hopefully. Due to retaliatory trade measures by other countries will directly lower the price of groceries in the U.S. More than 94% of all stock is owed by just 8% of the US population. Trump is literally taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. This is why Trump is playing a game of hokey pokey with tariffs. One day he has 25% tariffs on Mexico and the next he does not. This is to cause extreme volatility in the markets and a desperate need and demand to flee towards treasury bonds, which are much more stable but offer much lower potential return. This is also why eggs are cheaper now than they were under Joe Biden. Another caption. This is from Charlie Kirk. The sky is not falling. Keep your wits. Stay steady. Reagan reformed the American economy in the 80s. There was a market dip, and it gave rise to the 80s bull run. Building a foundation for sustained, healthy, low inflation growth will take some doing, but we have a historic opportunity. We must seize it. Stay the course. How will this affect the citizens of the United States? We could be looking at a temporary recession. How is this affecting us thus far? What is currently going on? So Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the White House today. As he met with Trump in the Oval Office, the Prime Minister said Israel will work to eliminate the trade deficit very quickly and added that Israel will also work to eliminate trade barriers with the U.S. Israel can serve as a model for many countries who ought to do the same, Netanyahu said. He added, I'm a free trade champion and free trade has to be fair trade. That source came from NBCRightNow.com. Nike and other company stocks are tanking as a result on relying on Chinese manufacturing. I want to give you guys some insight from my co-host Melanie here, who is a small business owner, and she is currently exploring how her small business will be affected. Melanie, please tell us what you do for your small business. Please give them your social media handles so that they can follow along your journey and hopefully support your small business, and tell me how this will affect you, what you know so far, etc.
So I run a small business that makes pins, keychains, all this other merch based on different movies and media. And most of the stuff I have made is made in China. So with the 30 to 34% tariff that they recently put on goods coming from China, it does affect a little bit, but from what I've heard and talking to the factories I work with in general, they already put like a low value on packages coming here. So I know mine personally have told me like if it's gonna affect it that much, they'll put a lower value. But generally, like usually they value the parcels coming in at like $20 to $30. So I don't think it's gonna affect as much as it will, as much as people say or freaking out about. I've pretty much just told everybody I've talked to, I'm like, just talk to them. I'm sure they'll work with you, but I know it will affect because it was a lot lower before.
Do you know what the tariff was prior to the recent change?
No, personally, no. I don't know if they're.
Honestly, I don't think anyone was looking at it till now.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was really looking at it until recently.
What is your social media handles? That way, if anyone in the audience, if you guys are into pins that are like, she's got like Captain America pins, Disney pins, all sorts of pins, please go follow that girl on Instagram and share her stuff and support her local business.
Thank you. It's Out of This World pins.
So, Out of This World pins on Instagram. You have TikTok, right?
Yeah, I just started using it.
I have a quick question. If you're out of this world, how expensive are the tariffs from Mars?
That maybe we can make up for your revenue here and what you're having to pay for products.
Yeah.
That'd be
That
nice.
would be nice.
Do you take how much is the Martian dollar equivalent to the US dollar?
Help us out, man. Okay, cool. Is there anything else you want to say about that in terms of like how it will affect you and stuff?
I mean, honestly, like I said, in terms of everything, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But it seems like a lot of different countries are already caving and changing things. So maybe it'll get better quicker than we expect.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I hope for
I
to
hope
God.
so.
Especially for people like you that are like, I love for one that you're just chasing your dream doing this pins thing. It's so creative and so neat. And I totally didn't even, I'm not a big like, I don't spend a lot of money on the things that I like and love, to be quite honest. But I'm telling you what, I want to buy CJ some Marvel pins so bad. Those things are so cool. Like maybe for his birthday, actually, what's coming up, because it's just so creative. And I love that you're chasing your dream. And it seems like you are getting established, especially on these social media platforms. I love that for you. I don't want this to cripple your business in any shape or form, or anybody's business for that matter.
Devin, real quick. I know stuff that I know you may not spend stuff like on pins and stuff, but anything that has to do with working out is all your deal.
Every Black Friday, I don't know where those pants are at, where they're made at, but I'm gonna buy me some Gymshark pants because, girl, they like $19 on Black Friday. Holla, I don't care where they
Don't
made.
let her fool you, folks. She spends it on stuff like that.
I mean, only on Black Friday. That's the only time because I'm too cheap. I'm so cheap. Okay.
Everybody. So here's a little bit more of a detailed explanation when it comes to Canadian tariffs. So Canada did not take too kindly to our response to tariffs, but they responded like this. So essentially they said they're going to implement these tariffs as countermeasures to U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. Their effective date was March 4th as of this year, 2025. So, goods subjects, this is as of March 24th, 2025, data that we've pulled before when we pulled all this research. But the tariffs apply to goods originating from the U.S. who are eligible to be marked as goods of the U.S. in accordance with the determination of the country of origin for purposes of marketing goods. So, essentially the CUSMA countries, so CUSMA countries, regulations. There's a surtax. The Canadian Border Services Agency, CBSA, is collecting the tariffs in the form of a surtax. And the scope of the tariffs, the scope of the Canadian counter tariffs are about $30 billion worth of goods, but this could be increased to 155 billion if the current U.S. tariffs are maintained or if new tariffs are imposed. The duration of these tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. eliminates its tariffs against Canadian goods. So, for an example, the value for duty VFD of an imported good subject to a surtax is $150. The imported good has the most favored nation or MFN duty rate of 0%. The applicable surtax is 25%. The amount of surtax is calculated as follows. 150 VFD times 0.25% surtax equals $37.50 surtax payable. So, real quick fact sheet I just want to mention as published by the White House as of March 6, 2025, so only like 2 days after Canada said that stuff. So this is titled President Donald J. Trump Adjusts Tariffs on Canada and Mexico to Minimize Disruption of the Automotive Industry. So the duties as imposed to the dress follows. Illicit drugs across the border are now 25% tariffs on goods that do not satisfy U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which was the USMCA. Rules of origin, a lower 10% tariff on those energy products imported from Canada that fall outside the USMCA preference, and lower 10% tariffs on any potash imported from Canada and Mexico that falls outside of the USMCA preference. No tariffs on those goods from Canada and Mexico that claim and qualify for USMCA preference. While the situations at our northern and southern borders continue to require appropriate action from the governments of Canada and Mexico, our American automotive industry, which provides American jobs, should not suffer significant disruption. So they're trying to say, like Devin said earlier, that it shouldn't be a major disruption, it should just be a slight disruption. That being said, for those who are trying to purchase cars, I know with these tariffs hit for foreign cars, it's gonna be way expensive.
As if they weren't already like double what they
I
should.
know,
No tariff.
know. But that's essentially what it says for a couple of those things. We do have some other ones that I want to mention from Reuters. For those of you who don't know who Reuters is essentially it's like the European or foreign-based journal company that, the news company that they use. And as of live right now, that was updated last 3 hours ago. Trump tariffs live EU proposes counter tariffs as markets fluctuate in volatile trade. Essentially, they're saying that investors are betting a recession risk that spark U.S. rate cuts. Trump is not considering a tariff pause, and tariffs ignite fears of a trade war. Essentially, we're already in a trade war. I just want to say that right now. We're pretty much already in the trade war. It's already happening. The moment the tariffs were enacted, it was the moment that we became entangled in this trade war. What happened as we were wrapping up live coverage on Monday, they said the global trade war escalated further as U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to increase duties on China and European Union, promotes counter tariffs of its own. Trump said he would impose an additional 50% duty on U.S. imports from China on Wednesday if they did not withdraw the 34% tariffs it had imposed on the U.S. products last week. So the 34% tariffs were actually from China, not from the U.S. And then the European Commission proposed counter tariffs of 25% on a range of U.S. goods. Officials said they stood ready to negotiate for a zero for zero deal with Trump's administration. Financial markets across the globe posted a third day of losses. Fund manager Bill Ackman and Trump supporter warned business leaders were losing confidence. The S&P 500 closed lower after a roller coaster session in which it touched its lowest level in more than a year. Trump made sure to reiterate his belief that tariffs would help the United States recapture an industrial base that has withered over decades of trade liberalization. U.S. officials said dozens of other countries have reached out with hope of heading off the tariffs that are due to take effect at midnight on April 9th. For more, you can follow on the continuous coverage of Trump's tariffs. Now, this, just so you guys know, is stuff that's being reported overseas. This is not an American journal company. This is something that they're saying foreign-wise. So this is what other countries are saying to each other. So I just wanted that to be known. That's what Reuters is saying. And about 4 hours ago, there's an analysis that was posted by David Babushka. Sorry, I'm butchering last names. My bad. I feel so bad. Investors are trying to game out how much tolerance the U.S. President Donald Trump has for stock market losses after his latest tariff policies ignited more than 10% wipeout on Wall Street. Some still hold out hope eventually for relief. A so-called Trump put, the option market equivalent of a presidential backstop for equities, underpinned Trump's first term, as he frequently cited stock market strength as proof that his policies were working. Over the course of his presidency, the S&P 500 benchmark rose 68% and scaled record highs while Trump cheered its progress, tweeting more than 150 times about the stock market. This time around, hope that Trump put still exists is evaporating, or at the least, investors are coming out around to the view that Trump is much more inclined to ride out sharp falls. The S&P and Nasdaq, I'm sorry, I know I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, NASDAQ, are down over 15% and 20% since his inauguration in January, respectively. The whole notion of tariffs and his trade policy has been such an integral part of Donald Trump's psyche. I don't see it abandoned, said Mark Rosen, Chief Investment Officer at Angels Investments, who said any pain level likely to cause Trump's changed course remained a long way away. Previous assumptions that Trump's pro-business agenda would buoy risk assets similarly had already been fading as his trade policies rattled investors over the past few weeks. U.S. stocks performed differently during Trump's second term. Change in S&P 500 performance during the first 100 days of the first and second Trump administration. So I'm going to show you guys a quick graph that they have on here, as stated. As this. We're not going to probably barely see, but essentially, one is his first term and the other is his second term. So the red, I know it's going to be really horrible, I'm sorry guys. The red is his second term and the blue is his first term. But you can see that there's a deep nosedive right here when he started enacting those tariffs. And that was as of April 4th. That the more aggressive than anticipated tariffs unveiled on April 2nd deepened the market sell-off, leaving investors questioning whether Trump put was gone or might eventually reappear through tariff rollbacks after any trade deals. So we talked about that, where the trade would roll back and then it would come back and balance out what's going on, essentially. As for Bob Elliott, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Investment Officer of Unlimited Funds, the sell-off still had a long way to go before any policy turnaround. He says, and he quotes, "It takes 20 to 30% declines in stocks to get there, so the decline so far is not big enough," he said. Some were more hopeful that the market would fall off eventually, inducing a change, of course, but he then quotes, "I don't think Trump is going to be highly tolerant of massive stock market declines. He'll see his popularity tank and it will endanger his whole agenda," said Kevin Phillip, partner at Bel Air Investment Advisors. So Bel Air, for those of you who know, isn't that the airplane company? That's airplane, right?
Yes, I think it's Bel Air. I think so.
Yeah, and so Bel Air Investment Advisors, I don't see any way out of this if he doesn't come up with deals or reasons to change course. There's more to read, but I just want to there's so much that's being updated. There's one 4 hours ago that's talking about Japan's focus, and the government is in the cause of this crisis as a portfolio manager. There's a lot going on, but that's just real quick what they're saying overseas. Needless to say, they're concerned if this continues to go on, this standstill.
Yeah. I think that a lot of countries are going to cave, to be honest. But
I think it depends. I think it depends on because remember, countries value different things. In America, so it's all, and then you have to think about economic status. Where is that country at economically? Are they able to sustain that patience? I think there's a lot of factors that play into it.
All I'm saying is they ought to be doing hella good with all the tariffs we pay currently.
Where's all that money go?
I mean, we buy all of our stuff comes from China or Vietnam or India. Those seems to be the most.
That's why China's, I think, I feel like China honestly is gonna get hit the hardest just because they make the most stuff. They
Yeah.
do. We are their biggest buyer, and I think they suffered so much. And if anyone can like research this, what I'm about to say, but like I feel like with COVID, when we were isolated, we weren't going out, we weren't spending things, we weren't making money, so we had to buy in America stuff, kind of like, right. I think that's when Americans started to realize the problem, and then Chinese people started realizing, oh, you need to buy more stuff. Please buy more stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it hurts the American market and it
It
takes
hurts
out.
the world economy because
Right.
we make up most of it.
I'm just going to be perfectly honest with who I am as a person. I'm cheap and I do not value clothing. I value, like, I want to buy a plain pair of jeans. I value my Nike Dunks and my cowboy boots. But in terms of like shirts and whatever else, I'm not going to a local boutique and paying $38 for a shirt that I could buy for $8 on Amazon.
Or $8 at a thrift store.
Right,
I
that
agree.
too. So I'm cheap. So like whatever works, whatever puts a clothing on my back, that's what I'm gonna buy because that's where I am in life. Like that's not a priority to me is to dress in the hottest, newest things. Now my leggings that I wear at the gym, like I said, I'm holla at Gymshark on Black Friday because they're the cheapest and they are truly squat proof, truly the best leggings out there. I will not pay for the $56 leggings I want at Buff Bunny that have the flare legs at the bottom because why? They're $56 and
You
you
know, she's looked at it too because she named it down to
oh,
the
but they're
detail.
50, let me tell you let
She
me
was
tell you
highly
something.
specific.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they might even be $76 on normal price and $56 for Black Friday.
You
And
know,
if I
she was mad because she probably wanted it and she didn't want
they
to spend that much money.
okay. So my friend, listen, y'all. My friend Taylor, we went to the gym, Crunch Fitness down in St. Pete, and I was like, dang,
Mhm.
girl, like them leggings, they so cute. They're like this blush pink. Okay, so like maybe this color right here. Helena, you looking at me?
Yes.
Maybe this color. It's not a shiny pant at all, but it's flare legs at the bottom. And girl, they be on point.
So it looks like yoga pants. Is that what it sounds like?
Kinda, sorta, but they're like
Are they
flare.
cut like? Are they like cut capri?
No, they're all the way down and they flare at the bottom like flare jeans, but they're a soft material. And I was like, "Where'd you get those?" She's like, "Buff Bunny." So, girl, I went on their website and it was like $70. And I was so excited for Black Friday, thinking, "Oh, girl, they're gonna cut these prices straight down." No, ma'am. And guess what? Every time I see them, I still want them. I probably have burnt up enough time in my brain. I should have already bought those damn leggings, but I'm not gonna because I'm that cheap and I ain't gonna do it. I can get them for $18, $19 at Gymshark, baby, on Black Friday.
I'm. I can't. I can't like say that I'm cheap. Definitely, but I don't. I also don't. I try not to buy. So the way I look at it is like I'm one of those people like if I can't imagine myself wearing it out at the store, I'm not gonna buy it unless I have a necessity for it, like undergarments or like tank tops or so, stuff like that. Like I can definitely say I've had like I just did. The only reason I can't say I'm like that right now is because I just did a deep spring of my closet, like deep spring cleaning, and I cleaned out a bunch of stuff I had since middle school. I should tell you, like middle school. For those of you who don't know, I'm 23 years old. Middle school.
I did that last year and I had stuff from middle school and I'm 25, so.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I know. So, but I bought a bunch of new clothes, and they're like super nice. And I'm like, but I also work. I have to. I work in an area where I have to dress nice.
That's very true. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so in saying dressing nice, I remember whenever COVID hit and Ross had like shirts on sale for $1.47 and $2.47. I went there and I have to be honest, it ruined me. Completely. When the prices went back up to like $13.99 a shirt, I was like, girl, please.
Cheers.
Oh, no, ma'am. I'm not. I paid $3. I paid less than $3 with taxes just a couple years ago. Not today. But now I don't even shop at TJ Maxx or shop at Ross for clothes because they so expensive.
Oh yeah, I know. It's like when before during COVID when used cars actually appreciated. I had a used car, a foreign used car, and my car appreciated $100. I was like,
You
oh.
go, girl.
Literally how? It was a 2012 Fiat 500 brown. Okay, his name was Richard de la Vega. I named him. Richie Rich is what my dad called him. And it was so funny because that car literally had like over like 100,000 miles and it appreciated $100. I was like, literally how?
I commend you.
Lit.
I commend you. Whatever works.
I ran that car till his wheels popped off.
I don't blame you. All right, guys, that is the end of our 4th podcast. If y'all have any questions, comments, or feedback, please leave it in the comment section and we will answer any of your questions that we are able to. Follow us on TikTok and subscribe to our channel on YouTube to stay up to date with what we've got going on. We are at Desk Talk 5. That's DESC TALK 5, the number 5 on TikTok and YouTube. We really appreciate you all listening in on our conversation. Thank y'all.